all been up and down this block since we've been little kids. We've all knew that the pink house on Grand Avenue was where Muhammad Ali was born and raised.
Inspired by the greatest, to be his greatest self.
We could be anything that we wanted to be.
For Duan Calloway, that meant being a helper and a hard worker. His fingerprints on Louisville staples like the Yum Center and Angel's Envy downtown.
He did the hard labor, the work with the concrete and all that.
His proudest moments as a carpenter were spent bettering the community he cared for most.
He was revitalizing the West End, which is where we all grew up in. And he wanted to do it one property at a time.
But his life's work cut short by a killer.
It is gut-wrenching, and it leaves a knot in your throat that won't go away because I know what my husband was moving towards doing.
So on January 7th, 2021, my husband, Duan Calloway Sr., Wani, was working on one of his apartments buildings at 253 Cecil Avenue.
Georgetta Calloway says the 46-year-old was framing up a sidewalk that evening.
My husband was actually hammering, and this person walked up behind him from Herman Street and shot him multiple times. Walked away. I'm sorry. I rushed to the scene, and it was just like being in a nightmare. And what I saw when I got there, it was just it was a nightmare. A nightmare that I was praying that I would wake up from, but I never did.
We are still following some leads that we believe will be fruitful in the end.
LMPD Detective Abigail Christman was also at the scene that January evening. She immediately started talking to witnesses to try and get information.
With everything that we have found thus far and all that we have spoken, all the people we've spoken to, we found that we are looking for only one suspect.
Detective Christman believes it was random.
There is nothing in his life that we have discovered that would have made him a target by any means.
And says Calloway had his back turned and was on his hands and knees, defenseless.
He was busy, he was working, he was distracted.
It's unbearable.
Duan was Terry Vaughn's only child.
It's a pain in my heart, knowing that I can't see my son, talk to him, be around him, laugh with him, all the good things that a dad and son do together.
He gone.
1, 2, 3.
2 months after he was killed, Duan's family returned to the scene of the crime, the last home he'd ever touch. A permanent reminder of his imprint on this community right there in the cement of the sidewalk.
I just don't want people to forget about him.
The family man was a father to 4. Duan and Georgetta would have celebrated 10 years of marriage in April.
I just truly miss my husband. I miss his presence. I miss the smell of him. I miss his hugs.
This family's message to his murderer isn't one of hate.
If you are listening, it's that there is still hope for you.
I pray for you. I pray for you.
But they know keeping this suspect free on the streets puts this community at risk.
My heart is broken because people do not realize the kind of danger that is lurking right next door.
Especially if this was random, like we believe it is, we don't know what that individual may do next.
Just as Duan tried to save homes in West Louisville, Georgetta says it's now up to the neighbors to protect one another.
If you know anything, if you remember anything from January the 7th, 2021, 253 Cecil Avenue, please, please, I beg you to look at your cameras, look at your rings. You're gonna help not only my family, but you're gonna help the whole community, including yourself.